Hi, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we have my next reading vlog, and I am opening up this reading vlog bright and early on Monday morning, so you get my sleepy, I haven't used my voice in several hours voice. In the week ahead, I actually am going to leave it pretty open to mood read from the books that I have. I have a few things that I know for sure that I'm going to read. First of those audiobooks, I'm reading Dragon Haven. And I'm about 30% through that one. So I know I will finish that one this week. I'm really enjoying it. I'll save an update for just a moment. Then also for sure, I know I'm going to go back and I'm going to be reading more of Words of Radiance. I did pause on the weekend for the readathon. My plan for this is to read it in the mornings. I've been starting off my mornings with about half an hour of reading. So I'll read that one in the mornings, and then in the afternoon, evenings, when I read again, I'll read another book. And the other one that I know for sure that I'm going to read is this one, and this is Brauns Drum. As far as what else I'm going to read this week, I don't have a plan. Audiobook, I know it's going to be one of these three, because I did find audiobooks for these three on Hoopla and a library app. Anyway, so it's going to be one of those three that I pick up next on audiobook. As far as physical book, whether that be ebook or actual physical book, I don't know. Whatever I feel like picking up after I finish Brauns Drum, I'll read that. Reading update. So starting with Dragon Haven, I think, okay, one of the things that Robin Hobb does and is a master at is how she develops the characters. I still stand by the fact that all the men, pretty much all the men, are awful. But there's also a character in here that occupies a similar position to what Kenneth, the pirate, did in Live Ship Traders, where, you know, he's like awful, but you're intrigued and you don't outright hate him. Now, it's kind of similar to that, but kind of different, and that's Cedric. Well, no. Yes, that's Cedric. I started off with a little bit of sympathy for him because he was put in a really tough position by Hest. He's manipulated. I mean, Hest acts the same way in all of his relationships. And so Cedric was another one of his victims. But then Cedric acted out of that, and he knew the whole thing of hurt people. So he was definitely doing that to Elise. And he did some pretty not so great stuff. And when he did something that's like horrendous, I thought, how can you come back from this? But Hobbs bringing him back from it. He's about to face the consequences of that. Well, things are changing for him because of what he did, and this awful thing that he did. Because of that, because of his temptation, because of the things that have happened, because of that, he's starting to change. He's starting to become a better person. I really love how she's doing that, because it's like, you still want to hate him. You still want to hate him, but you can't. And also with Leftrin. So with Leftrin, it's really interesting because the first time that you meet Leftrin, he's doing something. He's making a decision that's not great. And you think he's going to be one of those morally gray characters. He's going to be one that you love, but sort of. And always in the back of the mind, there's, wait, he did this thing. Obviously, I'm not going to say what that thing is. In the back of your mind, it's that. But all the other times that you've seen him, he's one of the sympathetic characters. But periodically, that thing that he did is coming back, and he has to reckon with it. Really well done, Robin Hobb. As far as the women go, I am really appreciating the character development that we're seeing, and how they're changing, and how they are becoming stronger, able to stand up for themselves. I love Thamara and Elise, and I love the interactions between them, how they're growing. So I'm really enjoying these, but I am going to pause on my way through the realm of the other links to read those other books so that I can finish my TBR. I'm going to give myself an extra token for that. So, the other update. Other update is Brauns Drum. And before I started reading it, and I started reading it last night, and I'm already halfway. I'm really enjoying it. Before I started reading it though, I looked at some reviews, and it's got a lower rating than I would expect. And so some of the reviews just said, no, the writing style is just not for me. I'm like, okay. So let's see what this writing style is like. One of the things that it's reminding me of is Garden of the Evening Mists, which I read last year and it made it to my top 10 really unexpectedly. Garden of the Evening Mists is set in Malaysia after World War II. There's a detachment from the characters that you don't see in other works, like Robin Hood. And this book is reminding me of that. But also at the same time, the author, and I'm not going to try to pronounce these names because I don't know how to read them. This one is set in Korea. But it's a similar area of the world, similar region. Obviously things are different because, you know, Malaysia is not Korea. I know that. They're in very different regions of Asia. One's Southern Asia, Malaysia, one's Northern, and that's Korea. But the author at the start of this, he's like, this is the legend of, he's explaining, he's telling the backstory of the legend of the Brauns Drums, of these two sisters. And when you think about it that way, like he's telling a story. He's telling about the mythology. He's not digging into these characters. They're not like active and like, you shouldn't know them intimately. And also this is like 2,000 years ago, nearly 2,000 years ago. And I think if you realize that, that's going to make a big difference. I'm going to go read now. Good morning. Coming at you in the morning again because I had some thoughts as I was going to bed last night. And obviously I wasn't going to record it last night. And those are thoughts on Dragonhaven. I find it really interesting how Robin Hobb is building these characters. So the character I want to talk about is Alice. Now, Alice is very naive, very innocent, and she's learning a lot and things are being expanded for her. Cedric is her friend growing up. He was the one that introduced her to Hest, suggested her to Hest as basically cover so that Hest could get married and still continue to be what he was. She's also been raised in a very strict environment, and she's a product of her environment, all the conventional things about her environment, and she follows along with all of those things. She also has this complex. It's not a martyr complex, but it's where she believes that everything is her fault, and she will interpret everything and make it like it's her fault. And I think that's because of how she was raised and then her time in an abusive marriage. So something has happened in Dragonhaven where Cedric is missing and he's been really, we'll say, ill for a while. And of course, Alice thinks it's her fault. And she's really sad and she's blaming herself for what she believes is Cedric's death. So she goes into his quarters on the ship, sees that they're a mess, like, oh, he's not like this. But there's so many things along the way. And I guess you could consider what I'm going to talk about next mild spoilers. But it's really to talk about how well Robin Hobb does her characterizations. So she goes in and she's cleaning because Cedric is very prim and proper and likes things nice and neat. And so she's holding out still a little bit of hope that he'll come back, even though she really thinks he's dead. And when she's straightening something up, a locket falls out. And there have been so many signs along the way of the fact that Cedric doesn't like women and that he's in a relationship with Hest, like from the beginning. And not a great relationship either because Hest is an awful guy. So this locket falls out and she's like, oh, that's why he feels so bad. That's why he didn't want to leave Bingtown, because he had this sweetheart. Of course, it's like, well, yes, but wasn't a girl. And I gotta hurry because my battery light is blinking. She's feels bad about it, and then like it slips out of her hand, and she catches it. And when she catches it, she hits the clasp, and it opens. Of course, when it opens, there's a lock of hair and then a miniature of Hest. The evidence could not be more clear of what's going on here. but because her paradigm is so fixed, the information comes in and it should change what she believes, but instead she twists it to still fit her paradigm, and somehow it becomes, Hest has made this for her. Why would he do that? He's so abusive. Why would he make this locket, commission this miniature? Hest has made this for her, and he gave it to Cedric, and Cedric hasn't given it to her, and this is just a sign of Hest wanting to control her. At the time, I'm like, Elise, how can you be so obtuse? How can you not realize all of these things? But at the same time, it was such a perfect example of how we twist things, how our thinking is so corrupted in certain ways. It just was brilliantly done. And then I'm not going to update about Brauns Drum because, again, battery is dying. But something happened that was in the synopsis on the flap, and I didn't even realize it at first. And when it happened, I just had to stop and go, what? So I'm really enjoying that one as well. Okay, not a reading update, just a real quick update because the battery's about to die, but I got a pre-order in and I'm so excited about this. This has been so long in coming. It's being difficult and my battery's probably going to die before I can change this because it's not opening. This thing is massive, absolutely massive. It's the illustrated edition of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I'm so excited I have this. Good morning. We have reached Friday and I realized that I didn't really ever update about Brauns Drum while I was reading it. One thing I can say for sure is that I never would have read this book unless I picked it up as a book of the month book. And I'm really glad that I did. So I can see the things that people said in reviews about the writing style not being their preferred writing style and things changing about halfway through, but I still really appreciated this book. If you keep in mind that this book is not really intended to be really focused on the characters of the sisters. Like, the sisters are the main characters and they are the driving force of this book, of the plot. But this book is really intended to tell the story of the resistance of the Vietnamese against the Han. And so this is a story that takes place historically around the time of the Roman Empire. Obviously, it's not in that area of the world. It's about, I think, 60 to 70 CE. This is not an area of history that I really know anything about, but it's absolutely fascinating. And what happens in this time is that the Vietnamese and all these different areas, because they weren't united as a country like Vietnam. There was all these different like royal families and etc. But they had been conquered by the Han Chinese. And the Han Chinese had exacted a lot of requirements onto the Vietnamese that almost directly contradicted their traditional culture. And I find it really fascinating to be thinking about that when I'm teaching about culture in my classes. You have the idea of the bronze drums, and they were a signal used on the battlefield. And the Han Chinese decided that they were going to do something about it. And the thing is, you know from the very beginning that it's not going to end well, because the author talks about how the Han Chinese took all of the bronze drums from this area after they conquered them yet again, melted them down into these pillars. But this story is the story of the sisters who led the Han to take that action. This is very depressing, but in a way that makes you think about things as it goes through. There's a lot of violence, but it's not graphic. It's startling. There's a lot of things in here that just made me gasp out loud. I really appreciated this book, and this is honestly a book that I never would have picked up originally, just seeing it and picking it up. So I really like this. I'm actually starting this a little bit later because when I get up in the morning, I will go immediately and I'll read. So I took my book in Spanish back there, so in my library, so I would read it. So I do that, and then I read Words of Radiance. I read this in the evening, the other books, and usually I read for about half an hour. Well, I kept reading because it got to a point in Words of Radiance where if you read Brandon Sanderson, you know, and there's a series of actions going on, and when that action gets going, you can't stop reading in the middle of it. You just can't. So I read a little bit longer, definitely gasped out loud, and I want to keep reading, but I have to do this thing called get ready to go to work. I still have about 400 some pages to read in Words of Radiance, and I've been reading it for quite some time, but I'm still really enjoying it. So I haven't really checked in a lot. I've been doing a lot of reading. I would say a lot of time spent reading, but not a lot getting read, mainly because I keep falling asleep. So there's that. It is now Saturday afternoon, and I have finished a book since I last came on, or I should say I have finished a book since I last updated, and that is one of my arcs, We Deserve Monuments by Jas Hammonds, or Jas, I don't know, it's Jas. My problem with writing the review is because I fell asleep, all those times I fell asleep while reading this book, and it was not because of the book at all. I don't know, I just felt really sleepy at different times today. Like, I started it last night, but it was right before I went to bed, so I fell asleep. And then today, the second time I was reading it, I sort of got comfy and had to move a few times, got some stuff read, but then realized, oh, I fell asleep. I don't wonder how long I've been asleep. And then I came home because we celebrated my mom and stepdad's birthdays because his birthday was yesterday, and her birthday was last week. Then I came home. Did I say that already? I don't even remember. But so I was reading it, I wanted to finish it, and I stayed awake for a good bit because I was walking around. Then I settled in on my reading chair here, and before I knew it, I kept dropping the Kindle because I kept falling asleep. The setup for We Deserve Monuments, because I really think this is a good book. I just never was able to fully engage, but the setup for We Deserve Monuments is this girl is going home, or where her mom grew up, with her parents because her grandmother is dying, and she never really knew her grandmother. And she's a senior in high school who is having to deal with a falling apart friendship, partly because one of the best friends had turned into her girlfriend, and then they broke up, and then it just got awkward. When she gets down to that town, she's trying to deal with all of these, because it's a small southern town, and all these problems, and she's biracial. Her mom is black, her dad is white. It's almost like a coming-of-age story, but at the same time, there's a lot of other stuff going on. She ends up with a crush on the neighbor. There's stuff in her mom's past. There's stuff in her grandma's past, like reasons why they haven't been down there in 10 years. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I'm saying this like I didn't like it. I did enjoy it. I think it was really well written and made some really compelling points. I just feel bad for when I write my review because I didn't connect with it that much, and I don't think it was the fault of the book, unfortunately. So I'm probably going to find another arc on my Kindle, but I've got to charge it because, you know, it was on while I was asleep. But then I'm going to try to get that done this weekend, but I remembered that unfortunately I have to do 2 more discussion replies and I almost said a quiz, but I took the quiz already, and some sort of personal narrative for the ridiculous class.
Hey, so welcome to Sunday. I am wrapping up the vlog here. I didn't actually finish all that many individual books this week, but I made really good progress with a lot of the books. So I finished Brauns Drum. I just got to page 755 in Stormlight Archive, in Words of Radiance, I should say. So maybe I can finish that this week. That's another 350 pages, so not as much as I thought. I thought it was over 400. Be that as it may, so I finished Brauns Drum. I read We Deserve Monuments. Later today, I'm probably going to pick up another arc, or maybe one of the other physical books that I have, but I'm going to talk about that in the next vlog. I really want to try to get to like half of my TBR read by the end of today. Who knows if I'll be able to get to that, because I'll have to finish 2 more books, 1 more book, something like that. Brain, words, making it work. Who knows? Because it's going a little slower, but I have been making my way slowly but surely through this book. I'm trying to read about 15 minutes a day and getting a lot read. It's funny, it looks like nothing of note is down here, but that's because that's where all the footnotes and stuff are, and I'm not annotating the footnotes. This is a really good book. I definitely will be purchasing a finished copy of this. I'm really glad that I got it. And I've gotten to page 78 in this, which means I've got about 200 pages to go in this. If I read 15 minutes a day or more for the rest of the month, I should be able to finish this one. And then again, Words of Radiance is the one that I'm working my way through. Things are just getting really interesting and really complex. And oh wow, poor Kaladin. Like everything that's happening to him, poor guy. Like the stuff that yeah. Another thing that just happened when we just met Lift, and I remember Lift being mentioned as a character that the one of the novellas in between books focuses on. I'm like, I'm so excited to get to that novella now, because in just the handful of pages that we had with Lift, I really like Lift as a character. So I'm intrigued about that. And I think for as busy as this time is for me, just feeling nonstop with stuff, still getting a lot read, and I'm really motivated, and I'm glad that I'm working on getting these tokens to purchase more books, because it's helping me focus and really do the reading that I want to do. So thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.